and that is the tough road that Dax Harwood wants CM Punk and the Elite to go down.
Yes.
Right? Dax Harwood did an interview. He's done his first podcast episode where people were like, "Is CM Punk going to be on it? Is he not going to be on it?" Because the advertising for it was so confusing. He's not on it.
Yeah, he is.
Is he?
He was literally in the photos that they posted of them recording it. Punk was there in attendance. So unless
I swear today he's Clara. Okay, producer Kobe, check it. But I'm pretty sure this morning.
But I don't think he talked, Kobe. I think is the point, right? I think he's in attendance, but he didn't talk.
Unless he was there to sit there.
No, that's what I mean. He was. I think he just was in attendance. He was a guest.
He wasn't.
But not on the show.
But anyway, Harwood is ahead of the debut episode coming out. He sent some of the transcriptions to Fightful, and Fightful have revealed this quote. Dax Harwood said, "If we can make it work, we can set up the future of professional wrestling for a long time, and we can change the course of professional wrestling for a very long time. When you think about it, unselfishly, we are doing this for wrestlers 20 to 30 years down the road, so guys and girls can make a living." So Dax Harwood was really, really pleading in the podcast for Punk and the Elite to, make up and to just sort everything out so it can continue. Clark, do you think there's any possibility of this happening?
To be totally honest, I've kind of been that guy with both Kobe and Anthony. We have these discussions often on some of our calls during Raw and Dynamite and whatnot. And I completely understand if you don't think it's possible, but so much time between, given the injury is almost the key to me. He's got 7 months to sit and think and go through rehab and do all this. And that's why I do think it's a possibility. And in fact, I'll put my name on this. I think we will see CM Punk. We will hear Cult of Personality in an AEW arena in 2023.
Wow.
I will say that. I believe, because, and I don't want to get too into it, but I also believe CM Punk, who I've been a fan of, I'm from Chicago myself, got my Cub hat on right now. He knows that if he can't work this out, where do you go from there, man? And who else can you work with in the wrestling industry? And I also think CM Punk is such a smart dude that there is so much juice left after Brawl Out. After that press conference, there's a lot
of money to be made.
There is so much juice and so much money. And that talks. And I think at the end of the day, as easy as it was in the moment to be like, well, never see him again in AEW, of course. And logically, that makes sense. I don't even think you're wrong if you thought that. And he does eventually come back, because there were times that I thought that. But there's just so much time here and so much money. And that, in the long run, and it's the most logical place where he can stay and work. And that's why, yeah, that's what I believe.
And Mart76 here is saying that if Vince brought back Jarrett and Warrior, then TK can bring back Punk. Anything is possible in wrestling.
Yes,
and that's
sir.
A very good point. It is a very, very good point in that. And I mean, I'm going to be honest, though, right after the Elite, doing what they've done about Punk recently, I don't think the Elite in a million years would put their egos aside, right? And I'm not here shitting on the Elite, right? I think Kenny Omega, the Bucks are great. But I'm going to be honest, I don't think they can put their egos aside enough to let Punk back, in AEW. And I feel like TK kind of maybe, dug himself in a hole when he brought back Colt Cabana. The way they brought him back was an FU to Punk as well. Like, they could have brought him back in another way, and they did it, as a proper FU to Punk. And Dax also spoke on Colt Cabana on the podcast. And Dax Harwood seems to have an issue with Colt Cabana because Colt Cabana did an impression of his accent. And Dax Harwood did not like that very much, and that's the only time they've ever interacted. But it feels like, once again, if they do bring him back, there could be even more drama then between the Bucks and Colt Cabana, and then FTR and Punk. There's just a lot of stuff. But I mean, if the Elite have any common sense about it, right, they'd put their egos aside and at least do the storyline and let Punk go out wrestling, his own way. because it would bring in a lot of money for their company. And it doesn't have to be Punk, doesn't have to come back for good show. He can come back for just a few months, have them do the big storyline, have Punk retire, whatever, earn AEW boatloads of money, bring a few more eyes to the product. And then from there, there's a lot more you can do with it.
Yeah, finish out his contract per se, right? Whatever that may be, whatever's left on it, and then, right off into the sunset, and then he can do this. He could podcast with us.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be great.
Join the daily broadcast.
Yeah, he's in.
Right?
Yeah,
Punk, we got
keeping the seat warm for you.
Yeah,
Mr. Brooks, by the way, all due respect. If you seriously though, got the seat warm. You let us know. You're out there listening.
No, I mean Punk. There's more from a given wrestling for sure, and I feel like AEW. I don't think he's going to go anywhere else. I think AEW is the only shot that there is to bring him back, and I don't think it will happen. But I think if Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks are smart, they'll put their egos aside, even if they dislike the guy. They'll put their egos aside for the sake of AEW, their own company, the company which has their name, the Elite, in the the name of the company
is in the letters. Yeah, it's in the letters of the right. It's AE. It's all Elite. Exactly.
And somebody said, "Join the podcast. I'll go back to UFC." Maybe
not the latter. Go, Jacob. Yeah. I love that. I love that tweet.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything left from in UFC apart from there's not even a commentary role from in the UFC. I don't think. I think there's MMA commentary roles, but not in UFC. So, he's in a really bad situation now where he doesn't have much, left to do. His comics haven't been too successful. His movies haven't been too successful. So I feel like if he, it's definitely in his interest to return to AEW, but I honestly think that it's in the Bucks' court. And Tony Khan, I'm certain Tony Khan would be smart enough to bring him back. I think it's just whether or not the Bucks would allow it. And if they're sensible, then they should. What do you think, Kobe?
See, that's the thing, is this is of course that touchy subject, and I do think Tony Khan picked his side with bringing back the Elite so soon. Say what you want about the Chicago show after Full Gear. I genuinely do believe that was them playing into the fact that they were getting booed out of the building.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, they planned to do the shots at CM Punk that they did, like the
I
biting.
think they planned it.
I think it was spur of the moment. I do. I want to believe. I want to believe Young Bucks are that smart to say, "Hey, we are getting booed out of the building. Let's continue to get booed out of the building." As weird as it sounds,
though, I think the fact that they're gung ho to do that means that they'd be willing to let him back. If you're willing to go that far, I think that was more a sign.
That's not even far though.
By the way, you don't usually joke about stuff you're really mad about, or you're going to chase legally, or all that stuff. You don't joke about it.
You do.
No, not if there's a legal situation or all of the stuff that would prevent Punk from ever returning. You don't usually joke about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The Young Bucks.
You don't want to talk about it.
The Young Bucks do have a bit of a childish sense of humor, though, where they wouldn't think about that necessarily.
No,
they do have a childish sense of humor, and that's not me insulting them. That's that humor's got so much over for them.
No, and I think it's hilarious myself too.
It's the success of being the Elite is their childish sense of humor, but at the same time, I feel like I really do believe that Tony Khan wasn't aware. I believe that much. But I think that Kenny and the Bucks were like, if we're being booed, let's do this or whatever. I think it was planned because it was just so in sync. And I 100% believe the GTS was planned. I 100% think that. Otherwise, I don't think Pac would have prepared for it like he did.
I mean, I don't know. That's what I hear you on that too. We said it in the comments right there. If Vince brought Jared and Warrior back, then TK can bring back Punk. Anything is possible. But I don't want to say based on that comment. We've seen it this year in wrestling. There's so much that happened. Just
Cody back to WWE.
In general, Punk can go back to WWE too. That's a big factor. And I want to say it, but I don't want to sound like that type of person. I genuinely believe there's a bigger chance he would go back to WWE.
So I'll say this too, to double down on that though, Kobe, because I hear where you're coming from. I think there's a bigger chance he goes back to WWE if he goes back to AEW first.
No,
I don't.
I do disagree with that one. See, this is the thing. Is I mean, we still got time. This is the thing I want to talk about. Is it is like all? I mean, if you want to believe it, you can believe it. But they're like all the news and all those things. But genuinely believe there's a massive divide in the locker room of AEW.
When there's not as bad as it was.
It's not as bad as it was. That news is toned down.
Exactly.
I get in September that was
it's toned down, but in September it was so down the middle. You either were pro Elite or you were pro CM Punk. We kind of have the Elite people getting their spot. I genuinely believe that Punk's not even worth bringing back because
he is to WWE.
Because there's money to be made.
Wait a minute. You can't have.
There's money to be made in AEW though too. To be honest,
yeah,
I think
there's money to be made. There's money to be made both ways.
You can't have both. Why would he be worth it to WWE and not AEW? That makes no sense to me.
Because AEW already went through the divide.
But then, so would WWE by theory if you brought it back.
How is there?
And if he could prove that he's capable of being apologetic by coming back to AEW and finishing out his contract, wouldn't it be more sensible for Triple H to forgive CM Punk for prior things that he's done?
I don't think there'll be enough gas left in the tank if you leave it another year. I think that if Punk's going to go to WWE, it has to be fairly soon, and I feel like that's why there's an issue with the no compete clause that Punk has the issue with on the rumored buyout.
And I agree with you on the H thing too, but at the same time, what value is he to WWE other than just as like a middle finger to AEW, basically at this moment? Because you're basically taking a guy that went rogue, finger quotes, ruined that, not things that I believe, right? Ruined the locker room or whatever, and split it down the middle, did all that, and then you're bringing him in just as like an FU to your competition, and he's not going to poison your own locker room unless that's the story that you're going to tell. Is that you're going to bring in, unless you're going to redo Vince McMahon, I'm bringing back the biggest poison, the NWO, like. Unless you're going to retell that story, what story is there to be told with a CM Punk who's, as you've just presented, Kobe, split the locker room in two, is impossible to work with, and blah, blah, blah. We just heard Dax Harwood talk about how great he is to work with and how he wants him to come back to AEW. I would say there's a better chance of him appearing ever in WWE, maybe a Hall of Fame scenario, maybe not a match, maybe not in the way we're picturing towards like this Mania. But if he goes back and, water under the bridges with the Elite as best he can, works together, even agree to disagree, does those type of things, and takes those steps, works out his contract, then there's a scenario for him to make a WWE type appearance. That makes more sense to me personally. That's just the way I look at it on that one.
Yeah, I feel like the one thing I'll say is this: I feel like he could, if he goes back to AEW or whatever, I feel like he could return afterwards in a Hall of Fame way or something like that to WWE. But I don't think that I think unless CM Punk returns to WWE within the next 12 months, I don't think it's happening, full stop. I believe that the clock's really, really ticking on that. And it's why I am actually edging closer now to believing that there is maybe a slightly higher chance that he returns to AEW than goes to WWE. But again, at the same time, I really, truly do believe that it'd be a good call for AEW to bring him back for a short storyline to finish things off, make some money, have him return backstage, shaking the hands of the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, putting everything aside to the locker room, so that stops the divide in the locker room, make sure that both sides are like, you cannot be talking shit about each other behind the scenes now, that just cannot happen. And then you just, have on screen, have them go at each other. And it will be a bit controversial or whatever, but I feel like it won't do that much harm backstage as long as they start it off and everybody involved puts their egos aside, which is clearly difficult for all four men in this situation.
You've seen it with Matt Hardy and Edge in the past, right? Being able to put egos aside and in gnarly.
There's more reason then to not put their egos aside.
That's a wilder personal situation than even this one, right? And so it is. There's precedent, right? It's happened before. And it can happen again. And so that I think the most likely that we see CM Punk in any ring is going to be in an AEW ring. I guess is what I would, as my main point. I would say that is my personal belief. Now I will fully come on and let you guys know that I'm wrong if he shows up in WWE, and I'll crack up about it too. It'll be fun, but that is a possibility.
Nice. I feel certainly like there is a possibility now, but it'll be crazy if Dax Harwood is the one to bring everybody back together. That would sum up how crazy 2022 has been.
That's a storyline in and of itself.